Hello from the southwest coast of England. It's been about 6 months since I've shared one of these videos, and like the rest of the world, a lot has happened in that 6 months, a lot of change. Most of you who've been following me for quite some time know that my work is generally flying around to different parts of the world delivering my work in person. And like everybody else, I've been taking my business virtual and online. Now the good news is that I've been working virtually around the world for the last 11 years, so there wasn't a lot that I had to change. But to take 100% of my work virtually was a big difference for me. So all of the consulting, the coaching, even facilitating workshops and keynote speaking events are all being done virtually. And I, like so many of you and the rest of the world, am learning how to do that in a better way. But what this experience has taught me in the last 6 months is to stop and think about, what do I really want? We all fell into a bit of a norm and a way of working and being that just became routine, became normal. But if you're like me and a lot of the people that I'm associating with these days, we're all talking about, well, what do we actually want things to be like when some of the restrictions are lifted? And, do we really want to go back to normal? And my view is that the old way of being is gone. Companies are changing, people are changing. And I think from an expense standpoint, a lot of companies are having to make decisions about where they spend their money. And let's face it, travel budgets are probably going to be one of the first things to be reduced. But also office space. Now that we see that we can work effectively remotely, I have a feeling that fewer people are going to be working in the office, and companies can start reducing their footprint in office space and saving money that way. But even more than that, it's about people finding a little bit more of that balance between work and home. Now granted, trying to find balance between work and home when you've got children at home having to homeschool has to be difficult. For my heart goes out to all the parents out there who have been dealing with that. That has to have been quite a challenge. But even the commuters, those of us who used to fly around and travel for short meetings or short durations, all the time that we spend traveling, commuting, etc. A lot of the people that I'm talking to have really decided that they just don't want to go back to that old way. So I'm starting to question, how might things be different? Yes, companies will be different. Companies will have to make some difficult decisions about perhaps restructuring the way that they work or how people come to work. But employees are changing too. And I think people aren't going to be as willing to give quite as much time to commutes or travel that they once had. Perhaps wanting that flexibility of working remotely, at least on a part-time basis, because I think this experience has shown us a little bit about how we balance a bit more between work and life. It's not been easy, and I have cases of some that have had a little bit too much of one extreme or the other, either not enough work or trying to balance too much work with family. But this last 6 months has given so many of us around the world the opportunity to experience a different way of being. It's stopped that hamster wheel for a while to let us try something different, and really forced us to try something different. And I think it's changed the way that people are going to want to show up in work and the way that companies are going to approach work. We now know we can do these things virtually. So it's an opportunity to save expenses and travel and time by flying people around the world. Sure, we'll get back to some of that at some point, and I hope so too, because I do miss my in-classroom workshops and the speaking events where I actually get to network and shake hands with people. And eventually we'll get back to some of that. But I also think that it won't go back to the old way. There will be a new norm that is developing as a result of this experience. So how are you approaching getting back to or establishing your new norm? What does that look like? What works for you, for your family, for your business, for your lifestyle? And how might that be a bit different than what it looked like before? Hopefully I'm going to start a little bit more frequent videos coming up soon, because there are a few thoughts that I have about businesses coming back into now that schools are going back into session and some of the lockdowns are easing around the world, now that businesses are getting back into having people in the offices, what does that look like? And what's the impact with possible restructuring and things like that? So I'll speak about that in future sessions. But I'm glad to be back with you on video and hoping to do this with a bit more frequency again. And I would love to hear from you. What have been the key learnings for you during this last 6 months of an incredibly unique experience? And what are some things that are relevant to you in your business? I'll see you soon. Take care.